Okay. Looks like it's working. चेक कर लेता हूँ. ओके. इसे 4 साल बाद कर रहा हूँ तो ओके आई थिंक सब सही है. हेलो हेलो. यानी इतने टाइम बाद रैंडमली मैं कर रहा हूँ बट लेट्स सी. सो अभी देयर वाज दिस रैंडम थिंग जो मैंने देखा था ट्विटर पे. मतलब मेरे ट्विटर पर तो दिख रहा है. मतलब लोग अलग अलग चीज़ें देखते हैं ट्विटर पे. बट सो एनीवन हु नोज टिम अर्बन, so this tweet is very famous right now. Like एक दो दिन से चल रहा है. And basically it's like a question and इस पे वोटिंग हुई थी and काफ़ी काफ़ी चला था. फिर इस पे रिप्लाईज वगैरह एंड लोग काफ़ी कमेंट कर रहे थे इस पे. सो आई थिंक इट वाज इंटरेस्टिंग. तो मुझे लगा ऐसे वी कैन डिस्कस दिस. मैंने एक दो लोगों से भी पूछा था, मेरे जो दोस्त हैं मीट पे ऐसे लाइक आने पर. अभी मतलब आई डेंट टेल देम कि ये क्वेश्चन के बारे में कुछ बात करनी है. मतलब देखते हैं इफ़ एनीवन इज़ अवेलेबल. तो मैं सोच रहा था उनसे पूछूंगा कि उनको क्या लगता है इस क्वेश्चन के बारे में. आई थॉट इंटरेस्टिंग क्वेश्चन है. बट बिफोर दैट एक चीज़ मुझे याद आया अभी. वो वो मेरा दोस्त वंश है. पता नहीं लाइक इफ एनीवन नोज. मतलब मेरे दो दोस्त स्कूल के हैं, मतलब वंश और आर्यन. सो बेसिकली मतलब उनसे उनके साथ भी मैंने एक दो बार डिस्कशन किया था जिनका रिकॉर्डिंग मतलब मैंने डाला था यूट्यूब पे. तो मेरी वंश से बात हो रही थी एंड कल मतलब मैं सोच रहा था ऐसे उसके साथ मीट करूँगा एक गूगल मीट. एंड एक मतलब स्प्राइट ज़ीरो करके एक ड्रिंक है. तो उसने मतलब बताया था मुझे कि ट्राई करने के लिए. एंड बट कल ऐसे मैं बात नहीं कर पाया उससे. तो मैं सोच रहा था अभी ट्राई कर लेता हूँ. मतलब मैंने मंगाया हो बट फॉर सम रीज़न कल मैं जब देख रहा था तो वो अवेलेबल नहीं था. एंड इंस्टेड आई गॉट दिस अदर वन. मतलब ये येलो कलर का है. क्या नाम है इसका? स्प्राइट समथिंग, लेमन समथिंग, पता नहीं क्या है. मतलब मैं तो नहीं वैसे पीता हूँ. देखो सही है. आई थिंक मे बी लेमन बेटर है. मतलब आई डोंट नो स्प्राइट ज़ीरो कैसा होगा. लेमन का फ्लेवर आ रहा है बट ठीक है. मतलब वैसे मैं पीता नहीं हूँ बट आई थिंक बिकॉज इसमें शुगर नहीं है तो एटलीस्ट वो चीज़ अच्छी है. ऑल्सो ये मतलब दिस इज नॉट मतलब क्या बोलेंगे पेड प्रमोशन काइंड ऑफ थिंग बिकॉज उसके लिए सब्सक्राइबर होने चाहिए. तो कोई ब्रांड स्पॉन्सर नहीं करेगा ऑब्वियसली. तो एनीवेज एक और चीज़. अभी एक्चुअली मैं बाहर था तो ऐसी मुझे रैंडम चीज़ें भी दिमाग में आ रही हैं. आई हैड गॉन टू सम प्लेस. तो यहाँ से बस 5 मिनट दूर था वो. लाइक इट्स जस्ट वन रोड जहाँ से मैं रहता हूँ. एंड मैंने ऑटो किया था. एंड मतलब ऑटो वाला आ नहीं रहा था कुछ टाइम से. फिर उसने कॉल किया तो मुझे लगा मे बी कुछ पूछेगा मतलब कहाँ हो. तो पूछ रहा था कि मैं यहाँ गेट पर हूँ, आपका गेट कौन सा है. तो आई थॉट मतलब मैं तो गेट पर ही था. तो जब मैंने देखा मैप पर वो बोल रहा है मैं गेट पर हूँ, वो डेस्टिनेशन पर खड़ा था. तो उसने बोला मतलब अगर मतलब मैंने उसको बोला कि आप जहाँ पर हो वहां तुम पहुंचना है. मतलब मुझे लगा कि मतलब ऐसे बगल में ऐसे गेट है, उस वाले गेट पर होगा, मतलब तो सेंस बनता है वो कॉल करके पूछेगा कहाँ हूँ, मतलब बट मतलब वहीं जहाँ अगर पहुँचना ही है मुझे तो मतलब फिर तो मैं ऑटो ही क्यों करता है मतलब। तो एनीवेज ठीक है। तो अ, अगर पता नहीं मेरा दोस्त कोई आर्यन अगर कॉल करेगा, अ, उसने बोला तो है, एंड अगर वो करता है देखते हैं इफ ही आल्सो जॉइंस, बट टिल देन मतलब मैं आई थिंक डिस्कस कर लेते हैं। सो देयर इज दिस क्वेश्चन दैट is there that basically it's about like you have two options कि दो बटन है, रेड एंड ब्लू, एंड मतलब सबके पास ऑप्शन है वो प्राइवेट में, एंड लाइक इफ more than 50% people press blue button then everyone survives, and if less than that press it then only the people who press the red button survive. मतलब बहुत सिंपल क्वेश्चन है। these kinds of questions are like the kind that जो मॉरल फिलोसफी के कोर्स होते थे, इंट्रो टू मॉरल फिलोसफी जो कॉलेज में होते हैं, वो उसमें ऐसे क्वेश्चन पूछते हैं। मतलब टिपिकल मतलब इट्स लाइक ऑलमोस्ट मतलब न्यूट्रल, मतलब कुछ भी नहीं है कॉन्टेक्स्ट, जैसे वो ट्रॉली प्रॉब्लम टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चन है, मतलब इट्स लाइक इसमें कुछ वो रिलीजियस बायस नहीं है, देयर इज नो काइंड ऑफ पॉलिटिकल कॉन्टेक्स्ट, मतलब कुछ भी नहीं है इसमें। इट्स लाइक मतलब बहुत ही ब्लैंड क्वेश्चन है, एंड लाइक इट इज गोइंग टू ऑल्सो स्टिल क्रिएट लाइक कंफ्यूजन। तो ऑब्वियसली इस पे मतलब फिर पोल हुआ था, एंड पोल के मैंने तब रेड डाला था, तो ये तो मेरा रिस्पेक्ट मतलब रिस्पॉन्स है, बट इन दैट केस मतलब मेजोरिटी ब्लू का वोट आया था, एंड फिर काफ़ी चला था इस पे आई थिंक डिस्कशन, जैसे इस टाइप के रिस्पॉन्सेज थे, मतलब नाराज थे लोग कुछ कुछ केस में। तो बेसिकली आई थिंक ब्रॉडली जो रिस्पॉन्सेज थे दो तरह के थे। इट्स लाइक कि people who were in favor of red were basically like saying कि the blue वाले लोग illogical हैं, they are basically idiots because like logically if you apply like game theory you will see that मतलब to survive yourself obviously like you should press red, because just from the question you can see that if you press red then there's no way you will die in both cases, like if you're pressing red because दूसरे केस में red वाले तो बच ही रहे हैं, पहले में तो सब बच रहे हैं, so you should just press red and you will survive, and this applies for everyone, मतलब anyone can do that. And so if everyone thinks logically in that way, then everyone can press red, and then everyone in that case then everyone will survive. But obviously we know people are not logical, तो ऐसा नहीं होगा, some will press blue, तो वो भी पता है, but for yourself if you are a logical person then you can think this and you can survive by pressing red. So in that way, if you're looking from that perspective, it makes sense that you should press red, because then the people who are not pressing it are basically just like gambling their life in that sense. So that is one perspective, but the people who are on the other side are, let's say, like the people with a more ethical view on this question. I think that is the difference basically जो बहुत interesting है about this problem, which was like it's like the logical versus ethical clash basically. So because the people who are looking at it from an ethical perspective, they are thinking about not just themselves, and they are saying ki, how can we save preferably everyone, like the whole of humanity basically. So in that case I think that the goal should be to maximize the blue votes, because that's the only way you can like guarantee, because we know that like there will be some people who will vote blue even if you think like logically like everyone should vote red, there will always be some who will vote blue because they come from some like whatever like moral perspective or something, um, or whatever reason, just they just think of something and for some reason they press blue, like they didn't think the game theory wala idea, maybe it just didn't occur to them, or like for whatever reason, so it is like sure that it won't be like 100% people will press red, so there will be people who press blue, but the interesting thing is like how many will press blue is not so clear, um, and that I think is जो मुझे personally लगता है is what will like what makes me like press red, जो मैंने respond किया, but at least but from the perspective of like the blue uh, the people who are in favor of pressing blue, they basically are going from that view that the idea should be like you should be doing this to increase the blue votes, and if you're thinking from that perspective, then it makes sense to just press blue. So that is, I think, जो main confusion है. So जो मुझे लगता है इसमें, I think fundamentally like there is only one problem. So इसमें क्या हुआ कि मतलब now we have seen the result of the poll and like we know that majority people voted blue, and अब now after looking at the result, it also kinds of it क्या बोल रहा हूँ मैं it kind of um, gives this like moral क्या बोलेंगे, it's like this moral high ground or whatever to people who like were in favor of like pressing blue, because now so they basically feel like they were right because the majority लोगों ने blue vote किया, and so there were people also who were like saying that so even on a platform like Twitter जहाँ पे the people will probably like not be kind or polite or try to be nice, it's like people try to be in fact very aggressive and all and say things without caring about others. Even despite that, if people are voting for blue to like say that we are not going to look at our own survival, we'll like try to push for like survival of the group, even risking your own life. So that means that it is clear that this is like the right option. So I think clearly, like in this question, if we see that a majority of people are going to press blue, if we have that like idea that like we can tell somehow in advance that that is going to be the case, then I think matlab, it kind of would make you press blue. Like if you somehow like were told in advance that like more than 50% of people are going to press blue, obviously you would press blue. And I think I had seen किसी ने तो लिखा भी था in some poll. Yeah, so this was also like someone wrote this. You are the final tiebreaker in this game, and the results are 50-50. This is like very obvious, I think. Like obviously, then like if the votes are equal, and now you have to just vote, then you should vote blue because then you are actually saving everyone. So this may be another law. In here also people have voted red. So this I would disagree with. ये तो like here if you're voting on it, this is like just basically you just want to like actually like kill people, which would be wrong. Yeah, that's so this person I think gave the most reasonable outlook जो मुझे लगा था, which is what I also thought like when I was looking at it. So the problem was like broadly जो I mean पूरा तो पढ़ सकते हैं, but so the result that we see in Twitter is still not the reflection of what would actually happen in a real life example, because the inherent problem is that when we even answer such a question, we know that we are not going to actually die. And I think that is the main problem, because if we replicate this in real life with the real awareness that you actually will die, then that probably will make a significant difference. At least it could make a significant difference. It probably will. And here it seems that it'll like the difference in like knowing like you could die is just going to increase that self-preservation response in people usually, I think, and that would make red votes to be more likely to occur. And if we just then go back and now from that perspective look at the poll results, like 57% voted for blue. Actually, that's not a very high number. Like that is actually very close. So if that is on Twitter and that's in a case where like people know that they are not actually going to die, and in real life the people could die for real, and people know that, then maybe like now knowing this, now looking at the poll, now we have this data, and based on this understanding, if we think of it now, in real life, if we have to answer this question, it makes it, I think, like more likely that you should probably vote, like just vote for it, because now it seems that it's very likely that a majority might vote for red in their life. And if that's the case, then voting blue might not be such a good idea. So, I mean, this is obviously like not such a simple thing. I don't know, like if like the statistics are right, like maybe just guess kar no. But yeah, this is like just my reaction to this, like on like first when I was read this, and the basically the person who wrote this also kind of said the same thing. So I think broadly, so I mean, it was kind of a balanced opinion. I think like the first part, like this is like the logical response. Like if you vote for red, like you know you will not die. But if you look at it from all perspective, then blue votes, just 50% are needed to save everyone. So if everyone kinds of like they think of that, uh, then I guess makes sense. Uh, but then it's going to become, then you get into that problem where like maybe it's not going to be exactly 50%, and just by, so because there are two problems. So one way of looking at it is that if we get people to vote for blue, like we encourage people to vote for blue, so, and in the real case, in the real world case where you know actually you can die, uh, so let's say people started out with like a bias towards red because of the self-preservation principle, and let's say like in that case by default people would have 70% would have voted for red and 30% would have been blue. Let's just like throw out just some random number. In that case, then let's say like now that's the base, but people are not yet voted, and the people who are in favor of blue, the like some among the 30%, they like went out and like got people to like they spoke to people and like convinced them that we need to like save everyone, and so like they encourage some people to vote for blue by that, but maybe like they shifted it a little bit, but not enough. So like there are two possibilities. So it's possible that by encouraging people to vote for blue, you just get that number just close to 50, but not actually cross 50, and it's like 45% or something. In that case, by increasing the blue votes, you're increasing number of people who will die. But if you could actually encourage people enough and cross 50%, then you save everyone. So I think that makes it complicated basically. So then what it matters is like, I think the where you're starting out and on the base, if the base was like something like close to 50-50, where it's like you have a feeling that maybe like an equal number of people might vote red or blue in the beginning, then maybe encouraging people to vote for blue makes sense, because then you could actually cross that line. But if the starting point is like very low and like people just want to vote for red by default to save themselves, and it's like there's an 80-20 or 70-30 kind of gap, then it becomes very difficult to, I think, convincingly um, like tell people to vote for blue. So that is what I thought. But yeah, I think this was an interesting question. Um, Another thing, there was this thing going on. ये कब हुआ था? This happened yesterday. This, I don't know if this was posted. I mean, this was posted yesterday, but this was posted after uh, Alex O'Connor's post on, I think, Instagram first or YouTube. I mean, I don't know which one was first, but it was at least before the tweet, I think. Yeah, reel must be Instagram. Yeah. Yeah, so it was first on Instagram probably, and then later on Twitter. Um, so people who might not know Alex O'Connor, like he had I mean, he still has a YouTube channel, Cosmic Skeptic. I had I've been like subscribed to that for like many years now. Um, I like his content. I mean, he started out I think early on when he was in college in Oxford University, and like his content was mostly focused on like atheism, rationality, and all of that. Early on, like he used to have like videos debunking like points, arguments in favor of God and like the religious creationists and like all of that stuff. Yes, like typical like YouTube atheism related content like at that time. It was also more popular, I guess. Uh, and like at the beginning, like I also used to uh, I liked his videos more. I think because he came at it at from a more clear and fundamental approach, which was like more grounded in like basic logical steps. Like it was like the kind you would expect from a college course. Like there are a lot of people who like go with like very like basic scientific arguments and like stuff. I mean, so like there are different style. Like there's a style of like going on it from a persuasionist way, um, or I would like rather I would say like a rhetorical style, like something like Christopher Hitchens would do, which is like fun to watch. And like I remember watching stuff like that also early on. Uh, but I think ultimately, like now, I just prefer like the more grounded philosophical approaches to these things. But yeah, I mean, now I think I like his content even more. Now it's like it feels even more uh, like clear-minded and like open to different ideas. So like this is like one of the cases where like if you don't know the context of this, you might not even know that Alex is here speaking as in someone who doesn't as such believe in God, because it's like actually kind of an argument against the argument against God. So like this is like one of the popular arguments that I think many people have like spoken of, and Ricky Gervais once mentioned it in some video, I guess. And it's basically called the what do we call it? Uh, like just going like one god further. Like I guess I don't know what if there's an actual name for this argument. Uh, one god further. Um, okay, it was I think popularized by Richard Dawkins, and basically so broadly like the 99% is yeah. Is there something on Wikipedia? I don't know. I think broadly like I mean the idea is like kind of like let's see, can we uh, maybe let's do it like this. So like the idea was that like different religions have their own gods, right? So like Hinduism has some god, uh, like let's say GH we call that. In Islam we have some god. In Christianity there's a god. In Judaism there's a god. So there are like all these different kinds of gods. And actually it's more complicated than that. Like in Hinduism, like we can say maybe there are like multiple gods, not one. And that is like okay, that's like fine. But I think the broad point is that like um, so like this the person who has in their mind this god doesn't really think of this god or this god or this god. Like they don't as such think about them as being real, but they might think of this being real. And the person like the Christian who has like this god in mind, they might not think of these other gods as being real. uh, so the argument like that Ricky Gervais also mentions, and that like earlier like it's mentioned by other people, which is the one god further argument, which is that like people think like the atheist is basically just someone who doesn't like believe in anything like any god, but they kind of what we say like they make this landing softer. They try to make it seem like that by saying that I mean this person also doesn't believe in these all of these, right? uh, so as an atheist, that person just has to do the same thing but include that one extra one. also. Like this person knows that this doesn't exist, or this doesn't exist, or they assume that. Of course, you can't actually know it. Like, nobody knows like which god exists or not. But they, in their mind, they don't believe in that god. Like they don't think of it as real. They believe this god is real. And the atheist just has to go extra one god further. So that is like the argument. So like that was mentioned here. So
Ricky Gervais is popular for having said,
You believe in one God, I assume, but there are about 3,000 to choose from. So basically, you don't believe in 2,999 gods, and I don't believe in just one more.
Right.
which I think is the most like unthinking thing that you can say about the issue of God's existence.
So basically now, so I think even Alex O'Connor has probably mentioned this earlier. This one God for the argument. I don't know how much has he mentioned it, or whether he has earlier been in supporter of it and now he's speaking against it. I don't know. But in this particular case, he's like kind of opposing that argument as being like not a strong argument as such. And I don't even know if it's a serious argument. It doesn't, like, I never thought of it as a serious argument. It didn't feel like logically like very strong, but it felt like more of a fun thing to say. But yeah, and I mean, so let's like just see.
Imagine you were sat around with your 10 brothers and none of you had ever met your father, and you were discussing, what do you think our father was like? One of your brothers says, well, you know, I think he might have been French. And someone says, no, I'm sure he was American. If you look at the kind of man that Mum's into, I'm sure he might have been American. And, you know, the next brother thinks he's Italian. The next brother thinks that he's German, you know, and it gets round to me and I say, you know what, guys, I don't think we had a dad. They're like, what? Of course you had a bloody dad. What are you talking about? Like, oh, hold on, guys. Like, you don't believe in the French dad and the American dad and the German dad. You don't believe in any of those dads. I just go one dad further. It's like, I think you're making I think you're making a mistake there. Notice that there is a huge difference between, say, the difference between 10 and 11, or the difference between 5 and 6, and the difference between 0 and 1. It's a difference of quality rather than...
Yeah, so basically the point here, and I think I kind of agreed with it, because like a lot of people like pointed out, like, they kind of didn't like the analogy. Like this, like for example, one way of like one point like people made against this was that you're comparing dads with God, and like we know that dads exist empirically, but obviously like we don't know about God, and then like there were lots of other things that people said. Like the funny thing that I found was that like Ricky Gervais and Alex O'Connor kind of had a discussion here, and their discussion was like, the most like cordial discussion thing, this whole thing, and everyone else around it is like arguing. And I like this discussion. Like they like kind of like just talk normally, like two people just talking, which you don't see on Twitter that much. But yeah. So, anyways, I think so. The analogy like that Alex gave, I don't think the board is even needed for this, but so basically, like in this case, like he compares it with dads. Like there are different kinds of dads, and he gave like I think like example like French, German dad, and all of that. And he compared that with like not having a dad. I think we can like even see this like a better example would be maybe just in the context of gods. Like so, you have like all these gods in different religions. So I think the actual point like that Alex is trying to make, which I also kind of think is correct, is that basically all the people who think of God, they have something in common in some way, because all of them are talking about a God ultimately. So it's not like I think in I believe in A. I think A exists, B, C, D don't exist, and one thinks that B exists, A, C, D don't exist, and I just think about E instead. It's not like that. It's more like I think of one kind of A, I think of another kind of A, and then this other person who's an atheist says, no, I don't think of A at all, I think of B. Uh, so that is so, or maybe a more clear way to put it would be, uh, so like all these gods in different religions, like they are still gods, uh, and there is still some point to be made that I think, which is still right, that other people are pointing out, is that the point of this argument is to like give this mental picture, which I think even Ricky Gervais was saying here somewhere, that like so you, like the Christian doesn't believe in the Hindu god or the Judaic god or whatever, so that particular kind of god, to not believe in that is the feeling that they want to convey to the person, uh, from the perspective of an atheist, like this is what it would be like not to believe in the god that you believe in. So it's like trying to map that mental understanding, uh, by taking that. But the point that Alex then puts back, I think, here is that that doesn't actually work, because it's like a person saying like I like this ice cream and you like this other ice cream, but there's still something common in all ice creams. It's like ice creams are sweet and like they have a certain flavor. They are like kind of solid in the beginning, and when you like eat them, they become liquid in your mouth. So like, so there's something about ice cream which is kind of common to its concept, and only the difference that in in our belief would be like, I like this particular kind of it, or I like, in the case of gods, it would be like there are these things, their properties or these stories around the god that I think of are true, and like, this is the nature of that god that is true, and I might not agree with the other versions of it, but I still like think of God as a concept as being real, and the other alternative is just completely different, as in like, so that's, I think, like what ultimately Alex was trying to convey is like the metaphysical difference between that. The example of, in the end, that he said that uh, of the difference between like 3001 and 1 and 0, that is a little bit, um, I don't know if that's like the best analogy. I mean, that also is kind of, it kind of makes sense, but I think this kind of makes at least in my mind it makes more sense to me, like saying that uh, these are all like different flavors of the same thing, and the other case is like the thing itself not being there. So it's like for the fundamental thing is still common in between the people who might disagree with like different kinds of gods. So like it's just they still know like this is a god. They just probably disagree about the properties and characteristics of it, but then you go to that case where there is no god, it's like completely different. uh, but yeah, I mean, this is also like interesting. So I was just looking at this randomly, like for the past 2 3 days there were these posts, and like my entire feed is just full of this. So I thought, uh, like I have nothing to do, so maybe I'll just mm, talk around this. But yeah, um, I don't have much else to do. Let's see. Let me see if Aryan is free. ओके सो आर्यन आ जाएगा आई थिंक आधे घंटे वगैरह, तो तब तक टाइम पास ही करते हैं। ये वैसे इट्स नॉट एक्चुअल टाइम पास, क्या कर रहा हूँ इसका भी प्रॉब्लम ये है ना, मतलब आई हैव सेट दीज सेटिंग्स कि मतलब ऑलमोस्ट हमेशा तो फेल होगा ये। मोमेंटम ब्रेक हो जाता है। Anyways, चेस ही खेलते हैं। कहाँ पे खेलते हैं चेस पे खेलते हैं। ये अकाउंट मैंने बनाया था आई थिंक 4 साल या कुछ पहले। एट दैट टाइम आई हैड लाइक डन वन लाइव स्ट्रीम, ऐसा ही कुछ किया था, विच वॉज द ओनली लाइव स्ट्रीम शायद जो मैंने किया। फिर उसके बाद अभी आज ही कर रहा हूँ, तो ये अकाउंट मैंने यूज़ ही नहीं किया फिर, मतलब अभी कुछ दिन पहले मैंने स्टार्ट करा ये लॉग इन करके, एंड आई वाज लाइक जस्ट टेस्टिंग ऐसी कुछ चीज़ें। लिचस में मैंने नोटिस किया था लाइक दे अलाउड दिस, कहाँ है इन द बोर्ड, या सो दे हैव प्रोवाइडेड दीज टॉगल्स, तो ये मुझे अच्छा लगा। लाइक यू कैन लाइक चेंज द कलर ऑफ द बोर्ड, आई मीन कलर एज इन लाइक ब्लू का जैसे जो शेड है, यू कैन चेंज द शेड, ह्यू एंड कॉन्ट्रास्ट को वेरी करके। हम्म, ओके, कॉल करते हैं। Right. Now I can move the rook here also because king is controlling squares. Okay. Yes. हम्म, ah, okay. Hmm, see, break ले लेते हैं. Mhm. Yeah, fridge. क्या कर सकते हैं अभी बुलेट के. हेलो. हाँ नहीं. हाँ चलेगा. हाँ मैं 5 मिनट में फिर करता हूँ. हाँ मतलब ऐसे कुछ कर नहीं रहा था मैं. टाइम पास ही कर रहा था. मैं अभी करता हूँ फिर. हाँ ठीक है. हाँ अभी करता हूँ बस. ओ. अच्छा. एक गेम खेल के फिर एंड करते हैं. यार बुलेट. अरे. हम्म, हाँ. ओके, कोई नहीं. सो ठीक है आज के आई थिंक काफ़ी था. यही दो चीज़ें थी मोस्टली जस्ट जो मैं डिस्कस करना चाहता था। उसके बाद तो ऐसे टाइम वेस्ट ही कर रहा हूँ मैं। तो ठीक है, लेट्स सी आगे क्या करता हूँ। ओके देन, बाय।